I'm Patrick Shepherd, and my piece is called 2721, and it's for string orchestra. It's one of those pieces that has sort of sat in the drawer and been pulled out occasionally, and then gone back to the drawer and been pulled out again. It started around about 2003. I was working doing some work in Germany and Russia, and I met an Irish woman called Lydia Reardon, and she ran a contemporary music ensemble called Ensemble 21. And she was at one of the concerts that I gave in Moscow. And she said, she's Irish, but she's lived in New Zealand for a while, and she's got connections sort of through that. And she said, we're doing an Anzac concert, as part of the sort of the commemorations in Sakhalin in East Russia. And she said, do you want to write a piece for it? And so I said, great, okay. So I said, what are predominantly your forces? And she said, well, basically strings, but I think they can sort of add add-ons. And I thought, well, no, I'll do it for strings. And so I wrote the piece and duly sent it off, and then didn't hear anything again. So I don't know whether it was performed there or not. I don't. I tried to contact her to see what needed to be done, and I'd sent parts and score and everything. So as far as I know, it was. But it hadn't been played in New Zealand, and because it's a piece about Gallipoli, I'd always envisaged it as being a piece that could be played at an Anzac service. So because, I talked to her about the composition of the group, and because probably something like that would be on relatively few rehearsals, and because I think the group was sort of semi-professional or very, very competent amateurs, it couldn't be ridiculously difficult. But those were just the constraints. The idea behind it was something that could be played as part of Anzac commemorations that would somehow capture the pathos and the spirit of the occasion. And 2003 marked me being in New Zealand for about 12 years. I'd already become a New Zealander well before that. But it also marked the sort of millennium thing, and being in New Zealand for such a long time sort of marked my feeling more an affinity with New Zealandness than the Britishness. And Gallipoli, I'm very aware that Churchill, the Lord of the Admiralty, sending all of these men to their deaths, and the guilt that sort of goes with that, being an Englishman in New Zealand on Anzac Day. It's kind of like, well, we were responsible. But it also marked in my mind, moving on from that and being a New Zealander and celebrating it, commemorating it, probably a better word, commemorating it as a New Zealander and seeing it from the perspective of native New Zealanders. And so it's not about war. Obviously there's no percussion or brass and everything, so naturally there wasn't any sort of militaristic feel coming in just because of the use of instruments. So that was kind of good, because that temptation was removed. And really it was just to try and get the feel of that sort of that national pride and that sense of sadness as well. Well, there's also anger. There's a little motifs, ba-da-dam, ba-da-dam, that come out that are quite incisive and quite angry. But then they're also treated quite softly as well in other parts of the piece. The textures, I divide the string orchestra up into 4 violin sections, 2 viola sections, 2 cello sections, and the basses. So it allows me to layer the orchestration, and so there's a lot of antiphony, a lot of mirroring, a lot of phasing, a lot of kind of this sort of nice smooth layering between parts. I wanted a very, very rich harmony. I wanted a modern sounding piece, but one that was going to work in that sort of public arena rather than just a bunch of modern musos sitting there and intellectualizing about something. I wanted something that would reach a more sort of popular audience, but would still have very strident and modern contemporary feel to it.